Our first stretch is going to be the leg out adductor stretch. So focusing on those hips, focusing on those groins, a fantastic stretch to help prevent groin injuries, help recover from groin injuries, and get a good estimate of how flexible your hips and groins are. So to perform this stretch, we're going to perform it one leg at a time, but all of our body is going to be involved in every single movement. Our core, our leg strength, keeping our back straight, our focus is all going to be involved here. So to perform this stretch, we're going to get into a wide stance position, bringing our feet as wide as, not as wide as we can, but a lot wider than shoulder width, so that you have the ability to sit into one side and be able to stretch your groin, your adductor muscles. So from this position, if I wanted to start by stretching my left leg, I'll actually be leaning to my right, or I say leaning, but I think of it more as sitting to my right. This is a very easy exercise stretch to perform in the wrong way. So a few things to focus on here. So from this starting position, I'm going to focus on sitting diagonally backwards to my right. Not necessarily focusing on leaning to my right. I'm going to be focusing on sitting behind the right side of my body. So I try and imagine that there's a nice little stool sitting right behind me, right behind my right knee, and my goal is to get the right cheek of my buttocks to touch that chair. So that imaginary chair, I focus on it and I'm sitting towards it. Once I'm in that position, you'll feel the left leg adductors stretching. Why it's important to focus here? Because you're going to need some length strength to hold you in this position to be able to stretch out your left side of your body, your left adductors. So you'll need to make sure that you have the strength to hold yourself up. Again, some of you might not need to get deep into that seat. You might even not need to imagine that stool sitting behind you. It might be enough for you simply to bend your knee a little bit. But the focus here should be on not bending your knee forward, but actually sitting backwards slightly. By sitting backwards slightly, your knee will bend and you'll feel that adductor stretch. The other thing to focus on is the leg that's being stretched. You want your toes pointing forward. You do not want your toes pointing outward or inward. You want them straight, pointing forward. For the supporting leg, so in my case my right leg, I actually want my toes not directly pointing forward, but slightly in an angle outwards to allow our knee to open up a little bit more comfortably. So on my left leg I have my toes pointing forward. My right toes are slightly angled outward. I'm going to focus on sitting diagonally backwards, which causes my knee to bend and causes my adductor muscles to stretch. And the deeper I sit into that stretch, the closer I get to that imaginary stool behind me, the more I will feel my adductor muscles stretching. You can, if you need to, even lean on your supporting leg. I would recommend to focus on keeping your core straight, your upper body straight, your back straight, and just focus on that strength of your supporting leg. Focus on that sitting backwards motion and focus on those adductor muscles being stretched. To perform this stretch on the other side, you can see that now my toes are pointing slightly angled outward. These, my right toes on the leg that's going to be stretched right now, are pointing directly forward. I'm going to be focused on sitting diagonally backwards behind my left leg, which will result in my knee bending. I can now feel the stretch in my adductor muscles. If I'm ready to go deeper into it and increase that intensity of the stretch, I'll just need to sit backwards. And then, as I mentioned, from here you can lean. I recommend to keep your chest up as up and high as possible, core tucked in, back straight, and you'll get a fantastic stretch here. Once you're ready to leave this position, you'll rely on the strength of your supporting leg to simply straighten itself out and push yourself up. You're back to that wide stance neutral position. From here, you can simply bring your feet closer together. And that's how we perform the leg out adductor stretch. So again, please refer to the textbook, chapter 12, page 161, and more specifically to the illustrations on page 175. This next exercise is going to be a strengthening exercise. It's going to be the bodyweight squat, which again is very important for building the strength all around the hips, all around the pelvis and the groins as well. The squat is a fantastic exercise because it really engages almost every single muscle of your body and strengthens the foundation of our body. So the legs, the feet, the groins, the pelvis, the hips, all around there. So to perform this exercise in the most efficient way and in the best technique possible, we'll be starting actually by standing up straight with our feet shoulder width apart. The closer your feet are together, the harder it is to perform this exercise. The way the textbook recommends is standing shoulder width apart. However, I recommend to maybe take another inch on each side to give yourself more space, give your hips more space to dive or to sit into that squat position. So once you're in your starting standing position, you're going to focus on sitting backwards. We're not going to focus on bending our knees, which is a common mistake. We're going to focus on sitting backwards. By focusing on sitting backwards, you can see that your knees immediately bend. So really imagine as if there's a chair waiting for you behind your body, but remember that there's no real chair because then you might fall over. So even if there was a chair sitting behind me, my vision, my idea of what I try and implement is tapping the chair with my buttocks and then heading back out. So the way the illustrations in the textbook show this exercise is with every sitting motion, every rep that you take, every time you sit down or bend down into the squat position, you'll throw your arms up to support your balance and allow yourself extra momentum in terms of going down and in terms of going up. So to perform a few repetitions, I'll demonstrate it again. I'm in that standing position. My goal is to stand shoulder width apart with my feet, 1 inch extra on each side. And from there, all I'm going to do is focus on trying to keep my head forward, my chin up, my chest up as high as possible. We do not want to squat down and look down to the ground and our chest facing the ground. We want to work on and focus on keeping our eyes engaged, looking forward, our chest up, and simply sitting backwards and jumping back up. Tapping the imaginary chair behind me and going back up. It's not easy to keep your back straight, your chest up, your eyes up, but it's very important to focus on it and work your way into developing that skill. So that's how you perform the bodyweight squat. Very important to focus on it, a very important exercise. Please refer to chapter 12 in the textbook on page 161. And for the specific illustration on how to perform this exercise in the best way possible, head to page 175. Our next exercise here is going to be the lunge exercise, which is a strengthening one for all of our leg foundations, for our hips, for our adductors, and for our pelvis. To perform this stretch, you can do this in a few different ways, where you can perform the reps on one leg as many times as you need to and then switch to the other side, or it can be performed in an alternative way where you can just switch one leg at a time for every single rep. Another thing about this is that it can be performed without any additional weight, just with your body weight, similar to how we perform the squats. To challenge yourself, if you have the strength or you're ready at that point, or maybe your injury recovery, to add some weight onto it and challenge yourself, then you can just hold a pair of dumbbells, one on each side, and perform the exercise the exact same way with holding the dumbbells. So to begin with, I'm going to demonstrate how to perform this exercise without any additional weight, and then I'll perform how we can work ourselves up to adding some additional weight and challenging ourselves. So a few key points to focus on when performing the lunge is when you first step out. So if I'm going to start working with my right leg, I'm going to step out, and then from this position, my left leg is going to bend all the way down to the ground. Your knee doesn't have to touch the ground, but it does have to go low. If you're not going low enough, then you're not performing the exercise in the most efficient way possible for the exercise itself and to get the benefits from it. So the way the exercise is supposed to look continuously is like this. So what we're doing here is stepping out, allowing our back leg to bend down to the ground, and then allowing our front leg to push ourselves back up. A few things to focus on here. One is actually not being too straight up or leaning backwards. We want to keep a slight bend forward and keeping our core engaged to allow us from that position to push ourselves up. You can see also as I'm stepping forward, my right leg is going forward, but my left arm is going up, mimicking that running motion. That will allow you to maybe balance yourself better and be more comfortable when performing this exercise. So now if I'm going to work on my left leg, I'm going to step forward, allow my right knee to bend almost to the ground or tap the ground. As soon as it taps the ground, I can focus on my left leg, pushing myself backwards. How it's going to look with continuous reps on my left side will be like this. Now to add weight and challenge myself, which will only allow me to gain more from this exercise, assuming I'm ready for it, is performing this exercise with a pair of dumbbells. So I'm going to grab these dumbbells that I have at the edge of my mat. I'm going to go straight into my starting position. Now, something to focus on here is by holding dumbbells, you actually won't have your arms to support you in that motion, that balancing motion. So all you're going to do is hold the weight on your side, one on each side of your body. From this position, focus on, again, keeping your chest slightly bent forward, keep your core engaged so that when you perform the exercise, all of your body is engaged and able to help you perform each rep. So I'll perform a couple reps, one leg at a time. When you're done with the exercise, I recommend to not drop the weights. You would simply bend your knees and drop the weights to the ground. And that's how you perform the lunge exercise. So please refer to the textbook on chapter 12, page 161. And for the specific illustrations and explanations on how to perform this exercise in the best way possible, please refer to page 175 in the textbook. Our next exercise is going to be the Sidestep Lunge. As you can see here on film, I have a step with me. So you will need a step, you'll need an object that you'll be able to step up onto. The higher the object, the higher the step is. For example, here I could add levels to this, and the higher the step is, the more challenging the exercise would be. But for the purpose of perfecting the technique of this exercise, which is the main focus here, and should be your focus as well when treating sports injuries, when trying to prevent these common injuries or trying to come back and rehabilitate yourself from these injuries, technique is key. So this exercise is actually going to look like something like this. You're going to step up with one leg onto the step, and as you're climbing up to the step, as you're pushing yourself upwards onto the step, you're going to want to bring your arms up to shoulder height level, and at the same time, your right leg, the one that's not on the step, is going to go all the way up, as high as you can go. So in a continuous motion, in one motion, the exercise is supposed to look like this. That's one rep. Rep number 2. Rep number 3. From the other side, it's going to look like this. So again, stepping up. As you're stepping up onto the step, your arms are going to go wide, and your leg that's not on the step is going to go up as high as possible. That's the part of this exercise that's going to be super important for strengthening that hip area, that pelvis area, that's so important, and what this chapter 12, is trying to emphasize on. So this part of the exercise, the stepping up, is great for the strength. You'll be engaging your glutes, you'll be engaging really all of your leg muscles here, your core as well for that balance. But as you're stepping up, you'll really need that hip strength to push your leg up towards the ceiling. And at the same time, in order to engage all of the body, and maybe in order to also add a level of self-help with this balance, you'll be bringing your arms to the side. But the beautiful things about engaging both legs and about engaging both arms as well is that this exercise is literally going to engage everything from your toes all the way up to your head. So a few key things to focus on here is, as you're stepping up onto the step, you want your knee to be behind your toes. You do not want to be leaning too forward, because then naturally your body will follow that motion, and it will be more difficult to keep your balance and perform that exercise in the best way possible. So something to focus on is keeping your body straight as you're stepping up. You want to keep your body straight, keep your knee behind your toes, and then you'll automatically be in a somewhat knee bent seated position on one leg once you start that motion. So as you're starting that motion, you'll focus on bringing your hands as wide as you can go, but only shoulder height level, and at the same time bringing your leg up, the other leg that's not on the step. Something to envision or focus on as you're trying to bring that leg up using your hip strength. You'll be focusing on bringing your ankle all the way up to touch your palm, which is very difficult. If you can do that, that's excellent, but that's something to visualize and focus on to help you perform this technique in the best way possible. So again, just to show a couple more reps from each side, I'm going to be stepping up, stepping down. From the other side, stepping up, and that's how you perform the Sidestep Lunge. So please refer to chapter 12 in the textbook on page 161, and for the specific illustrations on how to perform this exercise, head to page 175 at the end of the chapter. Our next exercise here in chapter 12 is going to be a stretching rotational motion, and as you can see, we're going to head towards the ground and actually start in a seated position. So make sure you have a comfortable surface to sit on and perform this exercise. The exercise name is the knee up rotational stretch, the knee up rotation stretch. As the name suggests, and because I mentioned we're going to be in a seated position, we're going to bring one of our knees up. So I'm actually going to start by bringing my right knee up, and once the right knee is up, the next phase of this stretch is the rotational motion. So the way we're going to perform this is actually, my right knee is up, but I'm going to take my right leg, my right foot, and place it across my other leg, the leg that's not going to be working in this instance. You want your right foot to be positioned right next to the outside, the lateral part of the other leg's knee. So in this instance, you can see that I'm in the correct position, my ideal position for the knee up rotational stretch. Once you're here, the next thing to focus on is your supporting hand that's going to be playing an important role in this stretch. I'm going to place my supporting hand right behind me, anywhere behind your body, below your shoulder, slightly towards maybe behind your shoulder would be perfect, and you can adjust it as needed. But from this position, we can already feel a stretch on this part of our body, the glute area, the buttocks area, the hip area. You will feel that stretch. Now, in order to add the rotational part, which will increase the intensity of the stretch, what we're going to do is we're going to lean on our supporting arm, pushed into the ground with our foot that's hiding behind the lateral side of my left knee, rotate towards my supporting arm, bring my left elbow to the lateral side of my right knee. And from this position, I can push into my knee with my elbow and at the same time rotate my body into my supporting arm, away from my knee. That's where, as the name suggests, the knee up rotational stretch. That's where it comes from. My knee is up towards my chest. I'm using my elbow to push into my knee. My foot is pushing into the ground behind my left knee, and I'm performing, using my strength to perform the rotational movement. On the other side, it's going to look like this. So running through all the steps, starting in that comfortable seated position, I'm going to bring my left knee up this time. I'm going to bring my left foot across my body and place it on the outside, next to the outside part, the lateral part of my right knee. During the stretch, I'm going to push into the ground with this foot. For the next step now, I'm going to take my left hand, place it behind my body, behind my left shoulder, to act as the supporting arm in this stretch. Now the next phase is to rotate and bring my right elbow behind to the lateral side of my left knee. Use my elbow to push into my left knee. My left knee will actually try and resist, but by having that resistance between my right elbow and my left knee, I'll be able to use my strength and perform that rotational movement. Very important to focus on pushing into the ground with my left foot, supporting myself with my left hand, my left arm, using my right elbow to push into my left knee and perform that rotational movement. To show this again very quickly, starting in a sitting position, bring my left foot across my body, lean on my back arm, bring my left elbow into my right knee, perform the stretch, hold. Once I'm ready to leave this position, slowly relieve the pressure from my elbow off my knee, bring my foot back to its starting position, push myself up with my supporting arm, and that's how you perform the knee up rotational stretch. So please refer to the illustrations at the end of the chapter 12. The illustrations are on page 175. You'll see exactly how to perform these exercises, the exact illustrations and the exact benefits of performing them and how they can support your hips, your pelvis and your groins moving forward. Our next exercise is going to be another stretch, and another stretch on the ground. So make sure you have a comfortable surface. The stretch is the lying foot over knee stretch. And the way this is going to be performed is also starting in that seated position. And the technique has a few steps to focus on in order to perform it in the best way possible. So I'll run you through the exact actions and run you through exactly a few things maybe to focus on a little more, to emphasize on. So to perform this stretch, I'm actually going to be starting seated. I'm going to lay backwards. So make sure your head is supported comfortably. And so as the name suggests, it's the lying foot over knee stretch. So I'm in the lying position, and the next phase is to get my foot over the knee. How we're going to do that is by simply starting with one leg, bringing my knee towards my chest, and then I'm going at the same time pick up my other leg. So both legs are in the air now. My other leg is going to be in that 90-degree angle. The leg that I have, my right leg with the chest, with the knee towards my chest, I'm going to bend this knee, this leg, and bring my foot behind or above my knee with the leg that's in the 90-degree angle. From this position, I'm going to cup my knee that's in the 90-degree angle, let it drop loose so it can leave that 90-degree angle, and this is going to be the stretch. Immediately in this position, you'll feel your glutes and you'll feel your hips being stretched out. In order to increase the intensity of this stretch, you can simply pull your knee, the bent knee, towards you. And by doing so, you'll be forcing your foot towards your chest and increasing the intensity of this stretch, increasing the range of motion of this stretch. A few things to focus on in order to try and perfect this stretch is to try and keep your back as straight as possible. Keep your back as close to the ground as possible. It's a difficult one to do and will require a lot of flexibility, both in your hips, in your glutes, and other areas of your body as well. So now to show this maybe from the other side, I'm going to lay down. I'm going to bring one knee towards my chest. The other knee is going to be in the air. I'm going now to bend my other knee and bring my foot above this knee over here, and then use my hands, my arms to cup this knee and try and bring this foot towards my chest. Again, a few things to focus on are trying to straighten your back, trying to keep your shoulder blades together and as close to the ground as possible, and simply hold this position. If you feel like you can increase the intensity, focus on pulling this knee towards you, and by doing so, bringing this foot towards your body and increasing the tension of the stretch, the intensity of the stretch, the range of motion of the stretch. To show this now in a more continuous motion, it's going to look like this. And from the other side, and that's how you perform the stretch. So please refer to chapter 12 in the textbook, page 175, for the exact illustrations on how to perform the stretch. Our next exercise on chapter 12 is going to be a strengthening one, the single-legged gluteal raise hold. So it's going to be, again, on the ground in a seated or lying position. As the name suggests, it's going to be a single-legged exercise. So we're going to perform the exercise on one leg and then move over to the next leg. So what you'll focus on here is bringing your heels close to your buttocks, not too close, allow for some gap between. Actually, before even heading into the single-legged motion of it, I'll focus on doing this with both legs. So it's going to be, maybe you know this exercise as the glute bridge. So that's the same exact technique here. You're going to push your hips up towards the ceiling. However, a common mistake that's made here is bending your back, going too high. Something to focus on to perfect the technique is to engage your core with every movement you make in this exercise, not allowing your back to bend. That's what happens when you let your core loose. If you keep your core together in place, you actually won't be able to go any higher than this. You want to squeeze your butt cheeks, and this is as high as you should be able to go in this bridge exercise. You should not be able to go higher than that. If you do, it means you're not engaging your core to in the best way possible and in control in this exercise. So to our specific exercise from the textbook, the single-legged one has the same technique, however, just one leg at a time. So I'm going to straighten one leg so it's out the way. It's going to be more challenging, and I'm going to focus on bridging up. So pushing myself up, and this is the max height I should be reaching. Squeeze my buttocks, squeeze my core, hold this position, because as the textbook wants us to do and suggests, this is not a repetitions exercise. In order to maybe strengthen our hips, treat specific injuries, rehabilitate and prevent specific injuries, we're actually just simply going to bridge up one time and hold that position. For extra support, you can lean your hands on the ground. You don't have to. And then when you're ready to move to the next leg, you'll just be following the same guidelines. Straightening one leg out, pushing yourself up by pushing into the ground with the foot that is on the ground. So pushing yourself up and simply holding that position. You can see maybe my hips shaking, my hamstrings shaking, my legs shaking. That's a good sign. You can think of this movement as some sort of a plank for your hips, some sort of a plank for the lower part of your body, for the back part of your legs, for the hamstrings. It's a fantastic exercise. So to show this one more time, you're in that comfortable position, straight one leg out, push yourself up by pushing into the ground with your foot and simply holding that position while keeping your core tight and tucked in. Make sure your shoulder blades don't roll out of place. They're stuck to the ground. You can place your hands on the ground if you need extra support for the balance. Drop back down. Once you're ready, straighten the other leg out, push yourself up, tighten your core, and simply hold this position. Not balancing yourself out with your arms is slightly more challenging. As soon as I do that, I can feel my hips area, my legs starting to shake. So that's how you perform the exercise. Make sure you do this properly. Make sure you don't overextend your back. Make sure you don't bend your back the way that I showed in the beginning by performing this exercise with both legs. But for specific explanations and looking at the specific illustrations, please refer to the textbook on page 175 to get the most out of this exercise and perform it in the best way possible.